give you another tool to make it so that you don't have to elevate things to actually bring it into the
Gives us
justice
an
system and
opportunity to be made whole.
Yeah.
But what it does, I think, is even more important, is get the word out. If people understand what the consequences are, they're often less apt to make that false step. So when they come in and apply, and we were to go over the application with them, then we would say, and here's the other part of it. It's not just 120 days. It's also the required to pay us back if we can come back again. I will tell you that I have had people tell me when we get to the end of the application where it says you will be, you may be prosecuted for committing a Class C crime. I've had people say, well, can we talk about that a little bit? What does that mean? And then come forward and say, oh, well, really, here's what's going on. The general assistance program right now is so tight, the numbers are so unreasonably low for people to be eligible, that if someone just owns up, we would help on an emergency basis anyway if they're in need. And that's what we're trying to encourage. Just be honest about what's going on. If there's something going on, if they're having a problem, we'd rather solve the problem. But don't come in here and lie to us. So what happens is once they come in and lie once, then they come back again, and then it gets bigger, and then it spreads. We'd like to stop.
Thank you. Representative Vashon?
It sounds like your 30 years of experience, you've really been able to figure this whole thing out, and then this 120 days gives you that extra leverage just to let them know that we're serious about this. But in your workings with it, you've been able to, it sounds like your people that are coming in know that from time to time they may have to come back and use that system. And having this local and having a couple of these tools there for you to use makes this program really, really work at a local and general assistance level. I'd like to make a motion off of that.
Been moved by Representative Vashon, second by Representative Sanderson, off task. Yes, further discussion. Yes, Representative Teen. Representative Vashon, your mic is still on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So again, I'm just going to clarify what you said, and thank you very much. And it sounds like you guys really, it's like any other public program, whether it's Medicaid or TANF or anything, you know, trying to get the right information at the application process, before money is misspent or potentially misspent, as we heard from, the gentleman, determining fraud is a very tricky thing, even from an investigative perspective, and which is why I think sometimes some municipalities, depending on what their resources are, it's a road you don't want to go down, because doing the investigation is very specialized, and the prosecution is very difficult because it's you have to prove intent, which is the key to fraud, my concern again is you have some communities that have people who've been doing this for 30 years, and you can probably understand things very, very early on, and then we have some communities that probably don't have anybody nearly as experienced as you are. But my question is, the fair hearing process, the decision from the fair hearing process can require the person to repay the money back. What you're saying is, it's actually, the process of actually collecting. It's like any time you have the equivalent of a judgment, whether it's on the civil side or whatever, it's the process of collecting that can be challenging.
Well, it's that people don't usually ask for a fair hearing if they've committed fraud. So it never gets to that level that someone has told them they have to pay back.
I understand that, right. But again, a fair hearing process, but that situation where you just, so what happens in that situation?
They get, the applicant receives 120-day disqualification only.
But again, but they are also, at that point, it's required of them to repay.
Not now, no. No, it's only if they apply for, if they request a fair hearing, and then the fair hearing officer says, yes, the director was correct, you need false
Oh, because there's never
representation.
been because you've never had to prove your case.
I've
of
never had
finding fraud.
anybody request for a hearing. I've had people.
And you're
pay us back.
speculating that the reason that they're not requesting hearing is because they're fraud, but there could be other reasons why a person.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Thank you. That's much clearer.
Representative Burstein?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a little lost
Oh, I
here.
just got a promotion.
What's that?
I just got a
Well,
promotion.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, sorry.
I don't mind.
You're my Mr. Speaker. No, I meant that kindly.
I take it kindly.
You do now have, and I apologize if I have to ask this over and over. You do now have a way to get the money back by law, correct?
If we go to court and the court orders them.
But you've gotten money back in the past. You said without one.
That's rare. That's right. What we said to this person is, if you want to pay us back, we won't take the next step in the court. And so the person paid us back.
So, okay, so my couple
But that
questions.
isn't the norm.
Yeah, my couple questions are, I thought under by law now, as laws stand, you can ask for money back. Maybe not in your situation, but that you can retrieve money back. So I guess that's a question I have.
Well, the law is written in such a way, I don't have it right in front of me, but if an applicant is ever in the position to reimburse a municipality, that applicant is required to do so. I can't think of a time, usually people come in and apply that for general assistance that then, let me rephrase that. I do have people come in and apply for general assistance, get help once or twice, and then go on with their lives, and maybe someday down the road they are able to pay us back. And I'm sure that happens because I've had people come in and speak to me and tell me how good it was that GA was there at that critical time. But we have never, ever gone back to a working person and said, you have to pay us back now for something we gave you 5 years ago. We just don't do that.
Okay, I have to,
I mean, if somebody won the lottery and they received a lot of money from the municipality, that would be a different story, but most people are moving on to take jobs and, you know.
but you do have a vehicle. If you need that vehicle, it's there to go get the money. So, and then my second question is about if someone can't pay it back, and what happens to them when now they're 120 days out, they've made a mistake, they can't pay it back, and that's a long time. That's my dilemma here.
And that's the tough love end.
Just to share my thoughts on it, I mean, we're talking about individuals who were being found, as the bill states, knowingly and willfully makes false representation. You know, when you, at least it's my view that when you open things up to say you can do this and you get a slap on the hand and you can come back in 120 days and you can sign up again. You know, at least we're saying that if you're going to sign up again, you got to at least, you know, pay back what you got by lying to us about. Representative Basham, and then Representative Hammond and Dion. Yeah.
I think the key thing here is knowingly seeking to defraud. And, you know, for people like us that are not regularly applying to this, I'm thinking that maybe some of my colleagues here might feel a little bit more comfortable knowing, from your standpoint of doing this for 30 years, discerning somebody that might be coming in to make a mistake in the application versus knowingly defrauded, and that how those two situations might be handled very differently. And perhaps if you could shed some light on just your experience of identifying that
Mistakes.
cast of
For
characters.
instance, Randy brought up one. A client came in and she was married. She came with a caseworker and they reported one income. They later found out that there were two sources of income. Both she and the husband received Social Security. The caseworker had done exactly the same thing and told the client, you only have to report one. Well, that was a mistake. You know, we found out about it, we corrected it as we went on. That person didn't come in with the intention of lying or trying to get something, trying to pull the wool over her eyes. She came in and told what she was told to tell. So there was no disqualification. We just made sure that we're all on the same page in the future. Somebody might come in and not mention SSI. They have a child in the home that they're getting SSI for. So that's something, that's why going through, the person completes the application, and then we review the application with them and ask about that. Because some parents do have the idea that the child gets the SSI, that is for the child and it can't be used as household income. So, but that's only for the child. So that's a discussion we have. We don't disqualify because of that. We just make it right and make sure that we're all on the same page, which is very different than the woman who was working, telling us she was disabled and collecting benefits and then going on Facebook and bragging. You know, what we're trying to do is to keep this program accountable. We want, those of us who are on the front lines are very sympathetic to the property taxpayers. I mean, many of us are ourselves, but especially the elderly that are on fixed incomes, they don't like this program. They are very resentful because their property taxes go up every year and they struggle and they can do a little less for themselves or a little less for their grandkids, and they see people who they think aren't eligible. Now, they don't know who's eligible or not, and unfortunately, people are making judgments that aren't true. What I hope that we do with this program is make sure that it is accountable. So when the taxpayer comes in and says to me, I hear that you're helping this population of people, or not in mind you, it's confidential, but you're helping people who are doing X, Y, Z. I can look at them and honestly say, no, we're not doing that. This is how the program works. This is how we're watching your tax dollars. And this is what we're trying to do, is make sure that that person doesn't end up homeless and then costing your city more money, or make sure that this person has their medicine. We are watching your dollars. We're being accountable. People are being held accountable.
Representative Hammond.
Thank you. What I like about this bill is that it seems to be an attempt to address the accountability of the general assistance program, which I think is vital. And I think we all agree that no amount of fraud is acceptable in any social safety net program, because, you know, again, it gets back to the accountability of the program. We were talking about different amounts of fraud, and you were saying that you will prosecute for larger amounts, and then I think you said $1,000 is such a small amount that you won't really prosecute. Is that
Right.
okay? So can you just give me a sense briefly of what sort of a high range might be, what a lower range might be?
One person got about $12,000 out of the city before I realized what a master he was. How bad I'd been had, I guess is the word. I don't know how to say it, but there was just absolutely no reason for him to be getting help. But he'd been injured, and you know, and I felt for it. I didn't. So that was a lot of money. The city never got paid back,
So did you prosecute?
even though we did prosecute. But he we never got paid back, but he was also defrauding Medicaid and food stamps. So I think that's how it went with him. He got hurt, and he got Medicaid, and then he got food stamps, and it just got to be, so it was coming really good. So then it was, why not have the city pay my rent while I'm at it? So it was, yeah, it did. So we didn't get reimbursed, but we did prosecute on that. In that case, the grand jury did indict it. It did go further.
Maybe about our own perspective.
Others, we have somebody who's supposed to be, she went to court, she was found guilty, and she owes us about $5,000. So anywhere from 5 on up, I would say. But if we had something like this, and in the first, we catch them in the first couple months, my thing is, I would prosecute if somebody has gone a long period of time taking advantage. And the way I look at it is, if I'm going to press charges, I have to be prepared to convince the district attorney that this is so black and white, there is just no way that he's going to be wasting his money on this. So that is normally a case where it's been going on and on and on for a period of time.
Sure. It's a matter of resources, so anything $5,000 and above, then you will spend the resources to bring them through due process and court.
And we might press charges, we might have them summoned, and they will get a fine for false representation, but they don't always end up in court.
So with this bill, somebody who knowingly, willfully makes a false representation, say $500 or $1,000, you would be able to recoup that money without going through due process, without bringing that person to court.
That would be reasonable.
And just to be clear on one thing, at least the primary change in this is they could have been, well, I guess there's two primary changes in this, and correct me if my understanding this is wrong. One, we're saying that determination of a need to repay can be made by the initial assessor, that can still be appealed, but you don't need to go through the appeal in order to have that determination made that repayment restitution is appropriate. And also, if you don't make that restitution, you can't requalify. But there's no garnishing of wages going on. There's no, the penalty is that you can't requalify until that's paid. Is there a Representative Basham?
Just really appreciate your 30 years experience in coming here and in the work session. It's just, as I hear more, I think, oh gosh, there's more questions to ask. And it probably almost pertains to another bill, but just in case you're not sticking around, the frequency of 30 years of experience with regards to duration of people coming in, do you have particular people that you've seen for a span of more than 5 years, or
The longest, right now I have somebody who is pushing a year and a half, but he's not been determined disabled, but he lost a leg and they're trying to adjust them.
so in his case, he's just literally trying to get back on
Yes.
on his feet.
So he's not, the doctors have said he's not disabled. They say he's able to work. So what we're doing with him is, we actually have him coming into the office. We have a computer in the waiting room, and he's taking basic computer classes right in my office 4 days a week. So we're trying to get him work ready while the medical stuff is taken care of.
That's wonderful. So generally, your cases are less than a year?
I'd say an average of 3 months.
Okay.
For the most part. Every now and then there's somebody like, after in the old days, before the 90s, before 1993, it used to be that people came in for extended periods of time. I mean, I watched their kids grow up, but the program is much more powerful nowadays.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion, or are we ready to take a vote? Representative Heineken.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll read these from Sanford because we have these great numbers. So the 22,000 people in Sanford, 19 received assistance more than 6 times. I imagine that's 6 months because I'm hearing this. So 19 out of 22,000 people received assistance more than 6 times. And of those 19, 13 were involved in ongoing Social Security application with a medical statement that indicating the client could not work. 5 of the cases stopped when the applicant or household member secured employment. 1 case involved a single parent required to stay at home to provide full-time care for a disabled child. So low numbers, every case has its purpose, and I appreciate the local input to all of these. Thank you for that.
Representative Burston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anybody here that could talk about the small towns and what happens with numbers out in the small towns? I'm not by any means disregarding, but I live in an area that I have 7 small towns. I don't have a small city. So I'd love to hear some numbers and the amount of fraud that might be pursuing and that's happening in those areas.
So we'll tell you that I started in Dexter, which is a relatively small town.
But like you're working on numbers now,
Yeah.
so I'd like to know about the numbers in the smaller town. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Joanna Hanselman, and I do general assistance for the towns of Freeport and Yarmouth. And I don't have any numbers for you, because I was not prepared for that. But I can tell you that on occasion, we do get some fraud. And again, some of the things that's really good about doing GA at the local level is I try and nip it in the bud. And as Vicki was saying, you get a lot of information from people by sitting down and completing an application with them. There's a lot of probing you can do. And another great thing is that you do GA for a 30-day period. So if you find something out in 30 days and they come back, you can require that they provide you the documentation. And there's all sorts of opportunities, I think, to make sure that you catch things before they get really too bad at the small town level. So I've had a couple of cases of fraud. We've never convicted anyone for it. We've never pursued getting repayment for anything. I can tell you that we have had 2 people who've come into better circumstances down the road, because we had mentioned that, or Vicki did, and we've had people pay back general assistance. So I think we don't get a lot of fraud where it gets out of hand. And but I do think that it is important that if people are knowingly and willingly trying to defraud the system, that there be something that makes people really not do it again, or that other people out there know that it's not something that we want to see happen on a regular basis. But it's been very rare that we've gotten to a point where we wanted to take it very far.
Representative Grasham.
Do you have a sister named Karen and Leslie?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I was named after the 2 of them. So nice to see you.
Oh my gosh, okay, yeah.
Nice to see you.
You want to hear this story? I haven't done this before, so it might be inappropriate. Okay. Say hi to your mom, Charlotte.
I will, thank you.
Wow.
It was. Go, are you ready?
And Representative Hymanson.
Thank you for coming and speaking. Would it help you to have on the front end a bill like this where you could work this language into your initial conversation with people?
Sure. I mean, I always spend at least a few minutes before I even start an application with someone, telling them what the General Assistance Program is, what it's meant to do, and what their responsibilities are. So it could easily be something that's added at that point. I think the more information you can give anyone about the kind of programs that we have and what the parameters of the program are helpful for people. Accountability is a big piece, as Vicki was saying from Bedford. Accountability is a big part of this program that I think makes it a really good program. So if that's just another piece that we add there in the beginning, that it's really important that you provide accurate information Before anyone signs an application, I do as Vicki does and says, make sure that you know that all the information that you've given me is accurate, because I do need to confirm some of this information during the course, anything that's come up during the course of the application. The more information anybody has about being accountable and what a program's meant to be and what we want to try and achieve, I think is helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a request for it.
All right, so this request a corner caucus, so we'll break for a short period of time.